Good evening. This work session of the School Board of Osceola Area Schools is being held in the Media Center of Cedar Island Elementary School on Tuesday, April 7, 2026. The work session is being audio recorded. The recording will be made available on the district website within 2 business days after the work session is ended. With regard to the audio recording, our communication staff has asked that we share a friendly reminder that side conversations during the work session are picked up by the recorder and can affect sound quality. Also, conversations during transitions between agenda items are on the recording as well. The intent of the school board work session is to allow for school board discussion of topics. Work sessions do not include an opportunity for audience members to address the board. To acknowledge attendance this evening, I'll ask that all present at the table state their names, starting with the person to the left.
Tanya Prince, school board member.
Peter Leatherman.
Kay Malala, Executive Director of Community Relations.
Erica Foster, school board member.
John Morstead, Executive Director of Finance and Operations.
Yvonne Schwartz-Lend, Executive Director of HR.
Brian Severson Hall, Executive Director of Community Engagement.
Mal Berg, Principal, Cedar Island.
Anthony Pennis, Executive Director of Technology.
BJ Oberter, Coordinator of Pre-K through 12 Operations.
Jill Kant, Director of Learning and Achievement.
Brian Bass, Assistant Superintendent for Equity Achievement in the High Schools.
Sarah Mitchell, school board member.
Keith Tate, School Board Member.
Kelsey Dawson, School Board Member. Amy Moore, General Counsel.
Kim Heil, Superintendent.
And I, Thomas Brooks, school board member and present. The purpose of school board work sessions is to build trust and teamwork, to exchange information, and when applicable, to provide direction in order to facilitate efficient and effective decision-making in regular board meetings. Dr. Heil, will you please share your check-in?
Great. Thank you, Vice Chair Brooks, Chair Prince, and board members. We're thrilled today to be at Cedar Island. He was kind of voluntold, but he let us come. So we want to, I want to introduce elementary principal Alex Berg, who is the proud principal at this site, and it's all free. Alex, go ahead.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here. Welcome to Cedar Island. It's good to see all of you. A couple of housekeeping things, first of all. When you entered and came down the hallway, if you're ever looking for adult-sized bathrooms, they're like half on your right. You know. I also wanted to point out the decorations here on the tables, and then these cards, and then these flowers behind you. Our Kids Stop students, we told them they couldn't be in here today. They normally are. Instead of being bitter, they decided to make you all decorations instead. So you're welcome to take some of those with you if you like. And I also just will shout out the fact we're in our new-ish media center. This was completed in the fall. I joke sort of that before this it felt like walking through a time machine coming out in like 1980. It was that good. So it's really nice. If you don't know the before, trust me. Did you know the before? Your kids up here, didn't they?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So you maybe saw it. It was a much needed upgrade. So it's been great doing things and doing different activities, and it's cool to be able to host groups like you. So again, welcome. Thank you. I thought a lot about how to sort of encapsulate all things Cedar Island in under 10 minutes, and I will stay under 10 minutes, Dr. I will not be the reason. I'll do that. But the two biggest storylines here from like an overarching level this year, systemic level, would really be, well, special ed programming and funding, which I had a chance to talk about last month. I will leave it there. But the other thing is the boundary change, which I saw on the agenda as well tonight. Cedar Island is poised to lose just over 100 students, which is about a quarter of all students, almost 1 in 4. So and that comes along with equivalent declines in staffing, and then also the families of students. So it is it's a really significant impact here. I know that varies from school to school. And if I was totally honest, I would say it's been a bit of a cloud over things for the last year when we first found out this change was coming. However necessary it might be, it still has a real impact here. And that's just the reality, I think, of what we've been navigating. I think the closer we get to the end of the year, things are feeling more real. We're working on transition plans for students to go to their new schools and that sort of thing. We're starting to put names and faces with those losses. And it's been challenging. However, in thinking about it, I want to be real and honest about that, but I also think it would be a shame if you all left here tonight thinking that things at Cedar Island are all doom and gloom, because they're not far from it, in fact. And I think it's really a testament to the community here and the way that staff and students support each other. And I guess that's what I would really want to talk about. And then I thought better than listen to me ramble on for 4 to 5 minutes about that, I thought I would show you. And so I'm going to play a video for you here in a second. This is a video, we call these Monday Morning News. We show these every Monday. I work on it throughout the week. This one in particular, this is video number 30 of the year, so this is not just like some showy thing I created just to put on a performance. This is video 30, I'll do my YouTube channel if you want. And the kids, the responses you see, those are all, there's no plan, no stage, anything. This is truly how they responded in the moment. But I wanted to show it because I think it highlights the emphasis that we put on creating a culture, community here that is welcoming, that is safe, and where everybody, and I mean everybody, feels valued. More than that, it allows us to elevate the voices of students, really give them a chance to kind of showcase their thoughts, their talents, their gifts, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to hit play. Full disclosure, I don't know what the sound is going to do. It might be deafening, I don't know, but we'll find out. So this is Monday Morning News.
Hello, and to our esteemed guests, welcome to Cedar Island. Now, normally during this part of the video, I would share important announcements, announce birthdays, and talk about what's for lunch, but I don't know if it's your birthday and you're probably not eating lunch with us, so let's just get right into the video.
What's the most expensive fish?
What?
A goldfish. Why can't Cinderella play soccer?
Why not?
Because she always runs away from the ball. What do you call a tomato that's losing a race?
What?
Catch up! I've been encountered as I am sorry to rescue in under 15 seconds and I'm going to race Bobcat.
Ready, set, go.
Done.
Whoa. Wow. How'd you do, Bobcat? Let's see. Not quite. What's your favorite thing about being a Cedar Island Bobcat?
I like how we learned as a community. All the nice teachers.
Like how they have a lot of contests and I like the kindness.
Playing with my friends and doing math. I like playing in gym and playing outside. Because I make friends and everybody here is nice to me and it makes me feel happy.
Love being a part of this team. I feel seen, I feel heard, and I feel valued here.
Love how everyone's so nice to me and that I learn a lot. Go Bobcats!
All of the staff here, the teachers, the office staff, everybody's amazing. And the new Bobcat Best Assembly that makes everyone excited about being a Bobcat.
I like being able to make a lot of friends. The best thing about Cedar Island is the custodians and that it's really clean. Going to speech.
I feel here at Cedar Island, everybody belongs. We're a big family here. Everybody takes care of everybody in the school. They're all of our students, and we really appreciate them every day.
I love being with my friends at school. Learning.
I like how the teachers are nice and respectful.
My favorite thing about Cedar Island are the students and hanging out with them at recess. Ready? Go Bobcats!
Go Bobcats!
For our Bobcat Best this week, I want to put the spotlight on our 4th grade students who last week engaged in a really cool activity in which they created their very own books. And I do mean created from scratch. They wrote them and edited them. They created the design and the cover art. They gave it a title. And then on Thursday, they met at Starbucks for a bit of a book tasting in which they were able to read their books aloud to their groups. And from what I saw, it was really fun. The books were creative and thoughtful and really well done. And so I want to say kudos to 4th grade. Well done. And with that, I want to say have a great week, everyone, and of course,
Okay, so that's Monday Morning News. Like I said, every week we do one of those. And I hope it just gives you a little bit of a flavor kind of what we're about. And in spite of some of the challenges that us and other schools are facing, we have stayed united and moving forward and positive and supportive of each other. So I want to thank you again for being here. We're not a huge school, and so we really do appreciate the opportunity to be heard from and visit anytime. Thank you.
All right, next we're going to have Kay Galila, Director of Community Relations. You want to introduce our guest?
Yep, Superintendent Heil, Chair Prince, and Vice Chair Brooks, members of the board, cabinet members. With us today is Peter Leatherman, the great Peter Leatherman. He is from the Morris Leatherman Company. And he, you might recall, the most recent surveys that we've done with Morris Leatherman Company were in 2022 and 2023, and those were both for our referendum. So this is a very much a community survey to kind of gauge where things are at overall throughout our school district. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Peter.
All right, it's a pleasure. This is after 32 years, I think I've done over 1,000 board meetings. I think this is the only district that goes from school district to their building to building. That's really cool. It really is neat. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, and I have really, really good news about how the community is feeling about the school district. Okay. To review with everybody what we did, we spoke with 400 randomly selected residents across the district. And then within that 400, it's approximately 30% that have kids. So I pulled those out, and we call an additional roughly 280, put that together, so then we have a representative sample of 400 parents. So we can do an apples to oranges comparison on differences in attitudes between the community as a whole and parents. Interviews were conducted in January, the 7th through the 23rd. Average interview time was 14 minutes. Non-response rate was 6.5%. Both samples, the 400 sample is projectable to plus or minus 5% in 95 out of 100 cases. The margin of error is determined by the size of the sample, not the percent of the population. So a 400 in the district, a 400 in Hennepin County, or a 400 across the state of Minnesota is always going to be plus or minus 5%. Putting up some demographics. Cell phone only households were 69%. Still got them, 11% landline only households. That's my parents, they exist. And then both landline and cell phones at 20%. I know what I'm doing, pushing the button, I push down. Okay, for the purpose of the presentation, the blue is going to represent overall, the green is going to represent parents. So if we look at the blue bars for overall, how long have they lived in the community? I mean, obviously, you've had a lot of growth. 1/3 of the people have been in the district for less than 10 years. 41% have been in the district for over 21 years. The typical resident's been in the district for about 12 years. Amongst parents, the majority have been here for less than 10 years, 51%. Now, 11% of the community has a preschooler or an infant, 32% have a child, and 66% are empty nesters. Empty nester does not imply an age. It's just lack of presence of a child. So if there's a 27-year-old in here, if they don't have a kid, they're classified as an empty nester. So your key constituency is about 1/3 of the community. Amongst parents, obviously, there's no empty nesters, 100%, but 25% of the current parents indicate that they have the next generation coming in to the schools in the future. The age, 20% are 18 to 34-year-olds, 19% are over the age of 65. Typical residents about 47 years old, while the typical parent's about 37 years old. The ethnicity, the parents, it's much more diverse than the community as a whole. So in the community, 56% are white, African American 21%, Asian Pacific Islander 11%, 6% indicated multi-biracial, Hispanic, Latino, and then 1% Native American. Amongst parents, 40% are white, 26% African American, 16% Asian Pacific Islander, 8% multi-biracial, 10% Hispanic, Latino, and 1% Native American. Women outnumbered men by 7% in the main sample, by 16% in the parent sample, and you can see the geographic distribution. Maple Grove, 50%, Brooklyn Park, 32%, Plymouth, 8%, Brooklyn Center, 6%, and the rest, the remaining areas of the district are 5%. Any questions on methodology or demographics before we go into the results? All right, survey says, what factor did public education play when they made the decision to move in to their current residence? For the community as a whole, now keep in mind 32% are parents in the community. 24% said a lot, 24% said some. So the district was a factor in their decision for almost half the community. Amongst parents, it's almost 80% indicated that the Osceola Area School District will play a role in their decision to move into the district. What's the reputation of the district? Both samples, it's over a majority say good, 52% and 56%. Those that have heard me talk before, Minnesotans, everything's good. It's very hard to get a Minnesotan to say things are excellent. We're just not enthusiastic like that. If you follow up with the good and ask them what would make it excellent, almost a third of them will say nothing. Good is good enough. It's just that ethos here. But what is interesting is you have 1 in 5 and almost 30% of parents saying it's excellent already. This is not prompted. 16 and 10% say average, 3% say large, 2% amongst parents, and then idiosyncratic responses make up what you see scattered on an opening. The quality of public schools. Now, since the pandemic, I only look forward from 2020. We're not going to go back and look at results in 2019 or before. It's an apples to oranges comparison on what's changed in attitudes and opinions about public education, about everything, but public education specifically. So what do we see? The blue bar, the overall, you're at 85% rating the quality favorably. You have 14% rating it only fair or poor. Amongst parents, it's 93% rating it favorably. Now, before the pandemic, it was typically the norm was about 90% favorable. I just shared a statewide, the superintendent saw it with the MSBA group, where the quality of education now for the excellent to good is in the mid-70s across Minnesota. So this compares very favorably. Also, the excellent rating here is down to about 11% across the state of Minnesota in 2026. So that's almost 2 times what we're seeing. You don't have the shift that some districts have had now, where people have gone from good to only fair or poor. And that's going to be difficult, because that actually is a conversion process. You have to change somebody's mind if they think something's unfavorable to get them to favorable. You're in a position that moving forward, you don't have to change people's minds. You have to make them more enthusiastic about what's happening in the school district. Move them from good to excellent. That's much easier to do than converting from unfavorable to favorable. Now, what do they like most? This is open-ended. They can tell us anything and we collapse them down into categories. For the community, it's good teachers, community involvement, and then you're going to combine a couple of categories. Good education, high quality education is 21%. Variety of programs and broad curriculum is 22%. So you have a statistical tie in the 3 major areas people point to. They'll point to who's teaching, what they're teaching, and the quality of the teaching. Now some districts are, to your south, Wayzata is program, it's the academic quality. Other districts, it's curriculum. Others, it's teachers. You have a statistical tie. But you do have an anomaly here that we don't see in the metro area. It's actually outstate Minnesota with the community involved, the sense of community that the school district is. Considering that your size, that's amazing. I mean, that's normally in the metro area, if that goes over 5%, that's normal. You're 3x that. Amongst parents, it's the teachers. 30%. If we combine some of those categories, so good education, high quality education, it's 20% for parents. Variety of programs and curriculum, it's 20%. So your parents set a prioritization on the teachers, the community, all three are important. But you do have this factor with 1 in 6 and 1 in 7, pointing to the sense of community that the school districts create. Now, if we ask what like most, we always follow up with the most serious issue. This is kind of the first surprising result. You're the only district that doesn't have lack of funding above 25% in 2026. That used last year, it was between 20 and 25%. In 2026 now, it's between 25 and 30%. It still ties for number one at 15%. Amongst parents, it's 17%, but the class size issue. And this varies from district to district, depending on growth and everything. It is more pronounced here. 15% of the community, 1 in 5 of parents. Budget cuts, 10% in each. Lack of discipline, that's typically right at about 10%. You're very low on the issue in Minnesota right now, which is taxes. As a top of the mind response right now, that is between 15 and 20%. Only 8% of your community brings it up as the most serious issue right now. Declining quality is typically somewhere between 5 and 10%. If we go down to the bottom though, there's a difference between unsure and nothing. Unsure is, I have no idea. Nothing is, and this will be a surprise for you, there are no problems in the district. This is utopia. The 15% is about twice as high as we're seeing now. It's actually kind of what it was pre-pandemic. What we found post-pandemic is everybody finds more things to be upset about. So they're less likely to say nothing. So you do have a larger booster core than the typical district. Amongst parents, it's 1 in 5. What do they recommend to improve the quality of education? Smaller class sizes. Now, on this one, I always put the caveat. Smaller class sizes means different things to everybody around the state. From what your perspective was when you grew up, what your kids had, everything like that. We didn't test like we have in past surveys here, where we go in and tell folks, here's the average class size. Too high, too low, about the right amount. So this is just their perception at this point in time. Better spending, back to the basics, and better discipline, all hit double.
Peter, can you speak to, you've done a brilliant job of sprinkling in comparisons to the state.
Yeah.
Might you be able to do that with those top three?
The top three, the smaller classes, if we're going to normalize it across the state, large class sizes aren't the issue that we see. It's much more, it's about either the better spending, getting more spending, the better discipline, and then the back to the basics. The concern, the declining quality, which is driven, that we saw in the state by test scores and what people will see.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt. There's a lot of slides. If you have any questions, feel free. Okay, we know how they feel about the quality of education. 85% rated favorable. Thinking about the quality 5 years ago, moving forward from the pandemic, 45% say it's better, 3% say it's worse. A 15-to-1 ratio. Right now in Minnesota, that is a 3-to-1 ratio. So you have a tremendous feeling that even if they have concerns, things are moving in the right direction. Amongst parents, it's 50 to 3. You can see back in 2022, we're only 18 months into the pandemic, it was a 3-to-1 ratio then. So it is growing, the feeling of improving quality. What about quality compared to neighbors? This, I think, I mentioned the superintendent. There is something with your location, and I was in Centennial West. You have Anoka Hennepin to your north, you have Robbinsdale to your south. There is something to be said of they're hearing the problems elsewhere, and they're not hearing it here. And so the quality compared to neighboring districts, look at it in 2022, it was 2-1. Now it's 9-1. Amongst parents, it's 10-1, saying the quality is better compared to the neighbors.
Did you ask what they considered neighboring districts when you asked that question?
Quality compared to charter schools. Amongst parents, 44-5. Amongst the community, 44-5. Amongst parents, 50-2. Saying the quality is better here than in charter schools. And even compared to private schools and homeschooling, the community thinks there's a competitive advantage for the Osseo area school districts. It's narrower, 2-1 basically, but that is atypical. Typically when we ask this, when you throw in private schools, people will say that the private schools are better. But amongst parents, it's 3-1 better tutors. Now we saw that the programming and the curriculum tied for what they like most. So how did they rate the district and offer the wide range of educational opportunities? This is important to me. 91% rated favorably amongst the community, 93%. This goes into why they feel good about the district, because what's important to them is being provided to them. What's the most important indicator of a high quality education? We give them this list, and they pick what's the most important indicator. For the community, it's the broad curriculum, it's graduation rate, it's safety and security, and graduates going on for further education time. Then it's test scores. You can see class sizes are the theme earlier on, but as an indicator for the quality of education, it's only 7% and 8% pointing to that as an indicator of high quality education. Awards of excellence, state-of-the-art technology, reducing the achievement gap, up-to-date facilities, and high property values. For parents, it's the broad curriculum and the safety and security. How does the district do on meeting the learning needs of all students, most, only some, or very few? In 2026, 49% say all. The norm on this right now is 40%. This has dropped post-pandemic because it's a stringent standard to say all students' learning needs are being met. Amongst parents, a flat majority, 54% say all students' learning needs are being met. Now we follow up with the most, some, and very few and ask what type of students' learning needs are not being met. It's the struggling student, the average, special income, low income, and at risk. Keep in mind those percentages are of the 50% following up with it. So it's not 28%, it's actually going to be 14% of the community saying struggling. But overall, the takeaway is you have more people saying all student learning needs are being met than across the state of Minnesota. Have they personally graduated from the Osseo Area School District? Just short of 1 in 5 have. Do they believe that their education prepared them for success after graduation? 97-3. Not going to be able to do much better than that. Did they have a child graduate from the Osseo Area School District? Over a quarter said they have so far, 96-4. This one, when we follow up, is typically 80 to 85% of parents. And especially the more recent graduates, they're kind of frustrated with how the kids are doing in college. So going through a series, and this is going to be the overall first. Do you rate the district favorably or unfavorably? Good year for sports. Sports is typically at the top in Minnesota, I'll say sadly. 93%. After school activities, 91%. Regular academics, 89. Buildings and facilities, 86. Music program, they're not going to add up to 100 because you're going to have people say, I don't know. Music programs, CTE programs, the theater program, visual arts, world language, gifted and talented, and special education. If we normalize this, which means take out the unsure and those that have an opinion, what's their mean rating? The rating comes in at about 84%, which is about 5 points higher than across Minnesota. Now, districts will have different lists, but if I just normalize when they go through characteristics, it's about 5 points higher. Now, how are parents going through this same list? Even happier. Athletics, 94. After school, 93. The music program, 93. Regular academics, 92. Once again, the parents basically follow and mirror the community as a whole, but they are about 3 points more positive than the community. Some specific perceptions, and some of these results are amazing. First off, do they trust the district to do what's right for children? 91% agree with that statement. 94% of parents.
Did you want to say that again?
In the most recent statewide, the trust issue, it was at 73 or 74%. It's almost 20 points higher. How does the district do involving the community? These two questions, along with if you were having a referendum, we'd ask you spend taxpayers' money effectively and efficiently. These three questions we've isolated in the database that if a person agrees with all three of these questions, they will support a funding request at an 85% level. They are foundational. The financial stewardship, the trust to do what's right for the children, and you listen to them. Overall, involving the community, 91%. The norm on that is 75%. We just have recovered to where we were pre-pandemic, to 75%. In 2021, 22, we got down into the low 60s because it was hard. We wouldn't meet like this in 2021 and 22. And amongst parents, 94%. And Minnesotans always have a difficult time making a distinction between can you have a say or did you get your way? Because I guarantee you 91% of people you involved did not get what they wanted or the answers they expected or anything like that. But at least they had the ability to be heard. Does the district provide a safe and secure learning environment? That's up 8 points from 2023 to 96%. Parents, 97%. Are they proud and would recommend the schools? Up 6 points to 90%, 95% of parents. We added the herd and value. This time, we did not ask this in 23, 87 and 94%. Job performance ratings. The school board is 25 points higher than the normal.
Did you guys want to say that again? Say it again.
The board is 60%. The administration is 82 to 16. It's better than a 5-to-1 ratio. And the administration didn't do a ratio because they have more uncertainty when you talk about the superintendent. The norm is a 2-to-1 ratio. Okay? This also shows me, even amongst parents, 89 and 87, that people don't see a difference between the governance and the administration. It's like a hand in glove. The dysfunctional school districts, the board will be here, the administration will be here, or vice versa. The people know the tension. They just view you as one entity here. Now, the closer you get to kids, typically goes up. The teachers, very well regarded, 91%. That's about 10 points higher than the norm. Teachers have not, overall in Minnesota, the pandemic took a toll on everybody. The attitudes of teachers went down about 10 points. And that's probably nothing to do with what happened here. The strike in Minneapolis impacted people's perceptions in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. So the 91% is about 10 points higher. And then the principals, they obviously saw your video, 82 to 60. Overall assessment of financial management, 72% favorable amongst parents, 79% favorable. The norm on this, and it's been the norm for about 10 years, is 52%. It doesn't change. So you do have that financial trust in the district also. And I honestly wish you were going for a funding request. This would be the easiest funding request to pass on.
Let me tap them out.
Have you spent past bond funds responsibly? Absolutely. In light of the funding requests that have been passed, 82% and 89%. And that is also something to put in here, is districts burn political capital when they go up for a funding request. So we typically see some drops here. We're not seeing those drops at all. In fact, we're seeing increases. So, the value proposition. When they think about the quality of education and the taxes they pay, how do they rate that value? Now, we know in Minnesota, the number one issue is property taxes. So the value proposition has two things going into it. What am I paying and what's the quality? And how do I rate that? 80% favorable, 85% favorable amongst parents. The norm on this right now is down to about 60%. Because the worst thing is, I think the quality's declining and my taxes are going up. Then secondarily, you can have, okay, the quality's fine, but my taxes are going up. So this is really taken a hit because of both of those things. It has not impacted you. Is the district adequately funded? Nobody knows. Unless you're doing budget cuts, and even if you are doing budget cuts, then there's questions if you're not doing budget cuts like your neighbors are closing schools or what have you. We're back to where we were back in the Tim Pawlenty days where nobody knows. 50% say yes, 44% say no. Amongst parents, 44% say you're adequately funded. A majority of parents say no. The boundary change process. How well informed do they feel about the boundary change process? Keep in mind, 32% had kids in the overall. 61% felt well informed. If on referendum or an operating levy, you'll have 60% that are aware there's an election the next day. So overall, you're never going to have 100% that are well informed about any process or election. That's a strong result. But the key constituency, 84% felt well informed. What about the opportunity to share their opinion? Once again, the involvement piece. 59% said yes, 34% said no, but amongst parents, 81, only 17% said no. And now, this is where I say differentiating between having a say and having your way. You had more than probably 17% of parents that did not get the result that they wanted, but at least they had their ability to share their opinion. All right, a new section. The importance of the strategic priorities. We went through and asked, is it very important, somewhat important, not too important, or not at all important? Well, the first thing is everything's important. I didn't even bother to put the not to or not at all, because the lowest, if we just look at the very and somewhat, the lowest level of importance is 93%. If we look at intensity, it creates a two-tier hierarchy. Safe, welcoming, and inclusive. 73% say that's very important. Then the other 6, it's a statistical tie looking at very important. So they're all important, but if one thing's the most important, it's the self-welcoming and inclusive environment. What about for parents? Or I'm sorry, we're going to look, okay. This is the importance. how did they rate the job the Osseo School District is doing on that priority? Now, the number one thing was the safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment, 92 to 8. If you look at this, the lowest level you have, the culture of achievement, 81 to 15. On this, the goal is you're not going to change necessarily move this up higher, the ratings. If you look, and I didn't separate out the excellent and the good, it's going to be building the enthusiasm for how people rate the district on these. Keeping in mind, they're all important. Now, amongst parents, it's almost a mirror to the community, but more intensity on the very important. Actually, the lowest level, we have 97% all the way up to 100% said timely, relevant communication. Said it's either very or somewhat important. But the safe, welcoming, and inclusive, almost 8 out of 10 parents said that is very important. So how do parents view the district on these strategic priorities? Even stronger. The safe, welcoming, the number one, 95% in favor. Overall communication rating. It was 84%, 90% rated. The norm on this right now is 70%. So on this one, I'm always curious when you have results, how, now this is you're reporting, self-reporting yourself on how informed you feel. But they have high levels of favorability and they have high levels of information. Sometimes more information doesn't necessarily breed favorability and can breed contempt. But it's not the case here. Amongst parents, it's 94 to 6. How informed do they feel? 79% of the community feel either very or somewhat informed. 96% of parents with a flat majority saying they feel very informed. Is information clear and easy to understand? Absolutely. 93 and 97%. What is their primary source of information? District mailings for the community, the website, social media, word of mouth, local newspaper, and then email for the community. What we have seen as local newspapers have either disappeared from communities or they don't cover school districts or city government like they used to, is the growth of the grapevine. There are metro area school districts where the number one source of information is the grapevine because they don't do mailings. And people that used to read the newspaper, over 55-year-olds, especially men, they're not going to go on social media. They're not going to go to the website. They're just going to get together and gossip. So you do have, by having strong district communications, it's kind of an insurance policy against that growth of the grapevine. Now for parents, they're more focused on electronic. The website, they still rely on district mailings, but then email. And email, it really, post-pandemic, it's set in, it's, parents lived and died with it day to day in 20 and 21 to see if the kid was going to be in school. And it remains a strong source of information. How do they prefer to receive information? This one I always say, look at it print versus electronic. 34% say mailings, 10% say the local newspaper, so you have 44% that want to hold something in their hands. How many people want to push a button on a computer? 23% website, 12% local newspaper, 8% email, so it's 43%. It's a tie. You do have 1 in 10, and this is a very small town. Say I actually prefer word of mouth. That's how I like it. That's not a metro area. Even those that the primary source of information is the grapevine don't want it to be the grapevine. For parents, it's mostly electronic. The website, email, social media is a flat majority at 54%. going through and asking folks, is it a major source of information, minor source, or not a source of information at all? Well, now people are honest about the grapevine. And so it goes to the top. It ties for district mailings with impact at 39%. For reach, it's at 84%, district mailings at 79%. And then all the others are just in kind of narrow silos of, if you have kids, then it's teachers and staff, text, email messages, it's going to be parents, social media, you watch the CCX news, you read the script. It's the top two, it's the grapevine and the news. For parents, teachers and staff are really, really important in school districts. 92% reach with 7 out of 10 saying it's a major source of information about what's going on in the schools. The parents text and email messages, the email newsletter, district website, but the parents, friends and neighbors gets to 90%. It just doesn't have the intense, the major. The mailings still impact, social media, building newsletters will have a greater impact amongst the school also. And then at the end, we went through and asked a series of statements of just parents. Ask them to agree or disagree with these statements. And we can go through the list. Teachers and staff care. It's rounded, that's why it's 101%. 100%. Emotionally safe environment, 98%. Physically safe environment, 95%. Positive representation of identity, 96%. Someone that could provide help when needed, 97%. Do parents feel welcome, 100%. 98% feel respected, 99% feel accepted, 94% say the teachers challenge their child. 96% say the school communicates regularly. 98% say that the school does a good job of informing. 97% say the school has a good leadership team. 96% meet the individual learning needs and then provide a high quality education, 99%. This is the one, the individual learning needs, that has been kind of the Gordian knot for school districts, because it is a way to overcome the perception of large class sizes, is make the kids feel like an individual. On this one, the norm for parents right now is in the low 80s. Technology, finally. How important is technology for parents? 46% say absolutely essential, 40% say very important, 13% say somewhat, and 1% say not too or not at all important. The absolutely essential is higher than what we're finding across the state. For the community as a whole, what we're finding it absolutely essential at, it's down into about the high 20s, low 30s is absolutely essential. 10 years ago, that was 60 to 65% in the absolutely essential category. There's been a sea change for those that have heard me talk with all the education acronyms. This is an issue education has to take on. This goes back to 25 years ago. When people got, after Y2K, everybody got really scared about technology and it dropped. And then education reintroduced technology to the public. And keep in mind, a superintendent asked me, so I put it in the statement, what percent of the district has ever been in the school building? In the statewide, 45% had never been in the school building. 25 years ago, when they would bring in senior groups in a classroom and show them what a whiteboard was. I mean, if you haven't been in the building, 45%, you're still thinking there's chalkboards and erasers. And it showed them what technology is. And I think it's time again, because part of this perception is a concern of screen.
Could I ask a quick question? Sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt. Did you qualify what is technology? Like, does it include just smart screens or smart boards, or is it your devices?
It's just a
one-to-one basis?
broad perception. How important is technology to student learning?
Thank you.
Because the concern is on screen time. And when kids, when everybody sees a kid when I see my kids on staring at their iPad, they're either doing YouTube or watching or playing Roblox. And people don't know that that's what the textbooks are. This reintroduction can help overcome some of the concerns that people have on technology. But it does impact, like districts like Mounds View last year and Roseville. They had 25 and 27% of the kids in the essential category, and they never talked about technology. It was capital projects only. Because when you have something absolutely essential versus very important, it's a nice to have versus a have to have. And so part of it really is getting people to understand how technology is used in the classroom. It's just not good science. How do parents prefer to receive information? Electronic. Only 1 in 8 on any person's telephone call. 55% send me an email, 33% say send me a text message. And then finally, for parents, what is the most important factor when they're selecting a school? Open-ended. It's the quality of the teaching staff. It's the academic quality. It's the safety and security. Their concern is class sizes, but it's very low as the primary factor, a most important factor when selecting a school. It's the teachers, the quality, and it is the child's safety. I think overall then, just outstanding across the board. Quite frankly, very surprised with everything that I see, how positive things were. And like I said, it's too bad you're not going for an operating levy or bond levy right now. Because these are extraordinary. We have a reservoir of goodwill out there with that atmosphere. And part of it is when we go through those strategic priorities, those priorities represent, the values that the community and parents have, and then you also are doing a good job in meeting those values that they have. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have as soon as I recover my book.
Board members, any questions?
Just for clarification, so when you talk about the random sample of parents, when I look at the demographics within the parent group, we have the majority families, it looks like a color.
Yes.
And so when you look at that 400 random sample of parents, is that representative of those demographics?
Yeah, I think they lined up pretty well with the ethnicity categories from the district. Yeah, within the plus or minus 5%.
Do we have the cut of that data if we wanted to understand if perceptions were different within?
Absolutely. Yep.
Did you happen to look at that?
No, I have not run. I can run crosstabs on any of those demographics, just as long as we have large enough cell sizes. Like when you get down to 5%, it's 20 people. So you're going to definitely have large enough cell size of white, African American, and then the others perhaps collapsed down. We want a cell size of 80 or more to look at run t-tests to do statistically significant differences. Well, we can do homeowners versus renters, anything.
This is great.
No, it looks great.
Well, and it is a testament to the hard work since the last time that we did this. There's a lot of people here who have either grown more into their roles, moved up in leadership. Our superintendent is new since the last time. Our board has put a lot of work into working collaboratively, and I think it's a testament to the hard work of the district and all the communication stuff, Kay. So this is good news, but it's also, I think, the result of intention with the work that we do and the communication and the engagement. Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Remember all the positive things you said in a couple weeks. All right, so thank you again, Peter. So we'll go on to our next area here, vision card C and D. So Dr. Bass, you want to introduce your presenters?
I'm just going to stretch my legs out for a second. I know, time. All right.
It wasn't me, it's
Vice Chair Brooks.
All right. All right, that's happening. All right, so thank you, Dr. Heil, Chair Prince, Vice Chair Brooks, members of the board, cabinet members. This is that time of year where we begin sharing out our progress towards the strategic directions that have been set by the board. So we're not in per se order from left to right as we read our strategic priorities document. We are in C and D, and so we'll get into that. Joining me this evening is Dr. Jill Kind, our Director of Learning and Achievement, Kay Valella, and Yvonne Schwartz-Lynn. So our outcomes this evening is to share our progress on those two strategic directions, and then also I think it's so fitting that Peter talked about the confidence in our strategic priorities that the community has expressed. And what are we talking about in the second outcome? We're talking about enhanced alignment across our system between the priorities, our strategies, and the measures that show both implementation fidelity and the impact that these efforts are making across the system. So excited to continue to share this information with you. Our vision cards are a part of the puzzle. So we have our vision, mission, values, and strategic directions. That's that first piece there, the strategic roadmap. Our vision cards show our progress towards meeting those strategic directions. Then we get into our alignment work, which happens in our school and department. It says improvement plans, but in our system we call it operational plans because we're operationalizing our strategic plan. And then that last part is the monitoring reports, making sure that you have that deep data that goes down more granular to be able to see some of the other trends that aren't as high level but go a little bit deeper.
Dr. Bass?
Yes.
Can you explain the trademark next to vision cards?
Is that from TeamWorks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So a lot of districts will call them scorecards, but that was Dennis Cheeseborough, the former owner of TeamWorks. That was his trademark.
Okay.
Yeah. He came out of engineering, and so trademarks were a thing, and patents. So he did trademark a few things. So again, from our strategic priorities. So tonight you'll see for C and D, we, thank you, Dr. Kind, tossed in the highest priority and focus priority because we want to make sure that we're seeing, it's important that we see what are the specific things that we're doing that most closely we believe are going to help us achieve that strategic direction. So we have the highest priority and we have the focus priority. So that's the information we're going to talk about tonight. And then we did, as you recall from last year, we dropped E as a strategic direction and reframed it as a continuous improvement magnifier because it really is how do we look at continuous improvement across our system. And so we had some very engaging conversations with communications and with human resources. Anthony will be sharing more about technology later in a different presentation. And John will be sharing more about Build a Better Future in another presentation as well. But we're looking at what are the things that are interfering with our ability to have the momentum within continuous improvement? And so that's what these questions are really getting at. And how are we engaging in our continuous improvement cycles, in those hard conversations to lift up what isn't working? And then what are we doing to address that? So you're going to hear from Kay and Yvonne tonight about what data they saw that they needed to address and what they're doing to address those things. Again, this is about alignment across the system. Are all of our initiatives aligned to the strategic priorities? And then last year, we got to spend some time with a consulting group, Educational Resource Strategies, who originally came out of Harvard and worked with school districts across the country to help us be really clear about return on investment. So you have strategies, and how do we know that those strategies are having impact? Well, what's the data that you're collecting? Is it showing, are we having fidelity of implementation? Are we doing the things that we say we're going to do on the timeline that we say we're doing them? And then what's the impact that that's having? And so as you look at this is us making the system strategy return on investment visual. So we talked about this a lot. I don't remember. Yeah, just an example. Right.
And so now we move into strategic direction C, which is promoting inclusive participation of our communities and providing timely, relevant, and easily accessible communication. So as Dr. Bass sort of walked through that template, here's an example of how that template plays out. One of the goals in strategic direction C is to increase awareness of Osseo Area Schools' identity, promise, and results among current and prospective families. This awareness is converted into trust, satisfaction, results. We have the one on the left is our highest priority, the one on the right is our focus priority, then we have our strategies, process measures, and outcome measures. So how are we going to monitor the implementation for our process measure? Outcome, what's the end result? And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kay.
Superintendent Heil, Chair Prince, Vice Chair Brooks, members of the board, cabinet members, thank you for this opportunity to share a little bit more about these strategic directions tonight. This graph that you're seeing on the screen is nearly identical to the one that you saw back at February's work session on the district's operational plan update. The one piece that we updated a little bit is the outcome column. And that's really based off of our community survey, which you'll see here more in a minute. So our overall focus, just to kind of do a quick review, is on our communication planning throughout the district, ensuring communication tools are used effectively, that messaging centers on clarity, cultural responsiveness, and accessibility. With regard to accessibility, that not only means that appropriate color palettes and navigation, those are all like digital type things, but also language is a part of that. We've actually pulled out that language part on its own, so expanding multilingual supports. You'll actually be hearing more about that next month when we talk about our language access plan some. And then last but certainly not least, strengthening our brand identity to ensure we're recognizable to our community, that our community is trusting us. There's a number of process measures. These can be digital, audits, check-ins, etc., that we take a look at in community relations. Some of these we do weekly, some monthly, even some annually. You can find links to all that specific data in your monitoring report. Let's take a look at the vision card then for the detail on the outcome measures. So the 5 outcomes that you saw on the previous slide are shown here on the vision card. For each of them, our vision level was 90% or better. So that's when we have the percentage two, we're combining, like Peter shared, we're combining that excellent and good categories together, so a positive rating. And then, so for all of our community survey type questions, you'll see some kind of throughout other vision cards here coming up too. We always use that same 90% as vision level. So I just wanted to share a little bit, kind of pointing out. So for the first overall, so the first row of this is overall communication, and 5th, community trusts us to do what is right for students. We have some comparison data to look at with the referendum surveys. In both cases, we moved from baseline to vision. And for our newer outcomes, rows 2, which is communication being timely, relevant, and easily accessible, 3, community feeling included, and 4, community feeling heard and valued. You can see we're progressing right out of the gate. I'd say this is good news. Some even better news is these numbers were higher in all instances for our parent-only samples. So for the overall communication, parents were 4 percentage points higher. For communication being timely, relevant, and easily accessible, they were 6 percentage points higher. For community feeling included, they were 3 percentage points higher. For community feeling heard and valued, they were 7 percentage points higher. And community trusting us to do what is right, 6 percentage points higher. So moving into our magnifier, as Dr. Bass described earlier, there are a number of communication tools available to staff. One question that our community relation team gets often is kind of like, there's so many things out there, like what should I use when? So our communication plan discussions with our schools and sites have really helped with that, and expanded the knowledge and usage has improved, providing more coherence and consistency. Our team still observes gaps in the timely access of messaging to all families, though. For example, website updating, just keeping websites up timely, and multilingual messages to trying to get those out simultaneously as much as possible. So moving forward, the team will continue to progress monitor with school site check-ins and usage statistics at the district level as well. And I'll kick it back to Dr. Bass for our pause, I believe.
We can pause here, or we could move through D as well. you want to tackle C separately from D?
I'm ready to keep going.
Are we
Anyone else?
Okay, so we'll pause at the end on both C and D. Okay. All right.
All right, so strategic direction D is create a system of operation, innovation, excellence, accountability, and sustainability. And here again, we have the system strategy snapshot with the priority. This is the highest priority, and then each goal underneath that. And one of the things that is different about strategic direction D is that you will not hear tonight about every piece of data on the operational plan for that, because business and services is in there. Technology is in there, and they'll have separate presentations on that. So rather than being duplicative, we just narrowed it down to what was not represented elsewhere. And so with that, I'm turning it over to Yvonne. Okay.
Same with this is strategic direction D, goal 1. This is very similar again to what you saw in February as well. We just updated the column side a little bit for the same reason with the community survey. The 2 focuses here is our enrollment marketing plan and then boundary changes as well. So when we talk about enrollment marketing plan, that's essentially trying to increase student enrollment and then maintain the students that we have in the district as well. Similar to goal 1 and C, there are a number of digital metrics, audits, check-ins, et cetera, that we look at to see how we're doing with this, but the outcomes give us an even better flavor. So you'll see that with the vision card. This really tells an interesting story, I believe. Lots of color here, so that it's very interesting. So I'm going to start with the red. So that's the intervene. So that red row is our capture rate, and that's the percentage of children living in our district that we service in our schools. So we continue to have an intervene number for that. We're in the high 60s. You can see on our vision card, though, we're striving to go over 70%. There are a number of reasons for this, which we can continue to dig into. As you know from just previous presentations, we have one of the highest school choice areas in the metro with several charter and private schools. But you can see, looking at the other rows, our November 1 enrollment number climbed between last year and this year. We're now at vision for that. First year student retention is at a baseline, so that is a spot we can continue to focus on. Then our 2 community survey questions, which we have some comparison data with the 22 and 23 referendum surveys, move from baseline to progressing with education quality and vision for proud and would recommend our schools. These are both higher for the parent-only subgroup, 8 percentage points higher for educational quality and 5 percentage points for proud and would recommend. Now, attendance boundaries aren't on here, but you heard from Peter that they were, people were definitely feeling informed and heard and valued, and just the reason we didn't put them on the vision card is that it's kind of like one of those temporary projects. It's not something that we're going to have necessarily looking at those numbers each and every year. And I'm going to turn it back to Dr. Bass now.
All right. I can speak to the first row regarding our work around operational plans. So we can, I'm going to pass because we talked about it elsewhere. I'm just going to hop straight to HR so we can talk about the retention strategy work.
Good evening. I'm going to highlight the strategic direction for HR, and then as Dr. Pine has indicated, I'll highlight the retention data tonight as well. So some of this, again, you've seen on the operational part, the focus being on retention and recruitment, with the focus on our mentorship program, having competitive, equitable, and sustainable compensation, and building our, especially our educators, and expanding and diversifying, growing our own licensed educators and diversifying our licensed educators in a number of methods, and I'll highlight some of those. I wanted to just highlight some of the measures. I do want to point out that the measures highlighted on this card are the 2026. So we'll distinguish between the long-term vision versus the measures and the goals for this year. So from a total compensation standpoint, we have spent a considerable amount of time benchmarking. We partner with the consulting company and now do that on a periodic basis, but we want to be at or better than market median as compared to our market peers, and we do meet that goal. And we also are working towards, and again, this is a 2026 goal. We rounded to 21% in terms of increasing staff of color for this year. Again, we'll talk more about vision, long-term vision momentarily. And then we do have a goal of having at least 90% of staff of color, and we'll talk about that. We're very close to meeting that goal. I don't know if you
I'll speak to this one. So that top row talked about the role of our operational plans, and so we talked about, you all gave us feedback last year in terms of some of the areas we wanted to focus on improvements within student and staff stakeholder. And this one, because we created the continuous improvement magnifier, it's like, okay, so what's a scale that gives us information to share across the system, whether or not our system, whether staff across the system are experiencing continuous improvement cycles and processes, no matter where you're at in our system. And so we sat down with members of the Vision Card Steering Committee, Jen and John Shoy Aristad, one of our 2 data and assessment coordinators, helped us go through a very nerdy process around construct validity for continuous improvement scales. So we had this whole theory, and then we went sequentially to say, okay, our first one is we know how operational plans are used for continuous improvement, right? That's structure. Then number 2, I believe improvement is possible through the use of our operational plans. I know how we plan to measure the success of our strategies. So this is for everyone, no matter where you're at in the system, whether you're at a site or whether you're at a department, whether you're in transportation, we are all engaging in continuous improvement work. And then we go on to say, I have the skills needed to support our strategy, so I understand how my role is involved in that process. I am carrying out the actions needed to support our strategies. Our team reviews data for our strategies 3 times or more a year to monitor the success of our work. So we're all looking at data across the system. And then our team values data as a tool for learning, not compliance. And then we go deeper. When our team meets to review data, the process helps us decide what to continue, adjust, or stop doing. And then the last one there is our team is willing to change or stop strategies that are not working without assigning blame. So this was a real fun activity to engage in. And so this will be tested and piloted this year in our staff stakeholder survey. So we're excited to get that feedback.
I'm going to try to be as energetic as possible. That's kind of hard. This recruitment and retention slide reflects our updated goals. One key difference in this year's vision card as compared to last year's vision card for recruitment and retention is previously the vision goals reflected the annual goal, and when we worked on our data and our metrics this year, we wanted to make sure that the vision column reflects our long-term goal. So again, there's a 2026 goal for this year, and then the vision column reflects our long-term goal. And that aligns with our strategic priority of having a workforce that is more reflective of the students that we serve. In terms of 2026, the percentage of staff of color is up to 19.2%, which is about 5% up from 5 years ago. We continue to trend in the right direction, but of course have considerable way to go to meet our long-term vision. And I'll speak more to this when we talk about the disaggregated data in the table below. With respect to the overall retention, we strive to retain at least 90% of staff of color equal to or greater than. Last year's data was just shy of 90% from the retention standpoint. Looking at the disaggregated retention data in the table below, and that's broken down by licensed staff of color, non-licensed staff of color, and administrators of color, with the longitudinal data there. So what you can see certainly is that we have made considerable strides in terms of increasing our staff of color in the non-licensed and administrators categories. but we are, it's been relatively flat for the licensed staff of color. So the recruitment challenges demonstrate that we have a continued need for investment in the programs that help us increase the licensed staff of color. And that's done in a number of ways, but one of the things that I want to take a moment just to mention and highlight again, and you heard in the last work session, are strategic investment in our Grow Your Own programs. Some of those programs are an investment in overall educators, and some are for targeted educators of color as well. I did want to highlight just a couple of some data points there with regard to the Grow Your Own program. So as a reminder, we're about halfway through several grants. So our investment in the Grow Your Own program started 3 years ago, and in those 3 years, we have increased the number of participants from 6 to 7 per year up to 24 this year, which was about a 250% increase in participation this school year when we compare that to prior years. We also continue to explore new pathway programs, and we're in the early stages of joining, we just got approval, joining a new teacher apprenticeship program. So that would be starting this next school year. So more to come on that. And I'll go to the next slide.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
How many staff do we have total? Like 20% of what? How many? I missed it.
So this is not, we don't count the casual. So we're looking at, full-time staff. It varies. So usually around 2,300, 23 to 2,500 for people that are considered benefit eligible.
So 20% are the 23 to 2,500 staff of color.
Yes. So moving on to the continuous improvement magnifier. Historically, HR did not have meaningful or consistent data to fully understand retention trends. So one of the improvements that we made was digitizing our exit interview data and processes. That's allowed us to better utilize and build a stronger system with meaningful data. The longitudinal data also helps to ensure that we are understanding why employees are leaving, so we are able to identify trends better. Some key improvements include higher participation through confidential and more accessible survey, more consistent and reliable data with the streamlined focused tool, a stronger feedback loop by pairing surveys with exit interviews, real-time insights to quickly identify trends and turnovers and tenure, and data-driven action using Qualtrics analytical tool to help us inform us on our programs. So again, that includes our mentorship programs, onboarding, trends, and strategies as well. Overall, that shift has allowed us to move from a reactive to proactive approach. It's allowing us to identify trends and create more targeted retention efforts and programs as well as strategies. The longitudinal data also allows us to track progress over time and measure what staff is considering to be more effective in supporting the retention. Next year, we'll prioritize state interviews, and that will be part of our learning work for the next school year.
Okay, we are actually ahead of schedule here in terms of the time. We were, I think, 7:15 to 7:45, and we're at 7:20 right now. So would you like to pause and have about 10 minutes to split into some conversations about the data you received tonight and formulate some questions? Should we partner up, or do we want to go 3 and 3? Do you have a preference for how big or small you?
3 and 3.
3 and 3. Okay, so we've got 3 here, 3 over there. Okay, we'll take 10 minutes. I'll set the timer.
did they say strategic direction, the highest priority? I
Yeah.
feel like it took a while. Like I see what
to read it, yeah.
but now, now I feel like we're getting there. Okay, I get it. It's not going to be there for exam,
So I was curious who does the miniatures, so I
I'm assuming, like, how big are I just don't know.
So the only thing for C is like it's trying to make that more attention. Oh, I guess she's.
But
Just the sites.
That's story.
Yeah. Like website.
yeah, they're in like,
Okay.
okay, it's just a, yeah. So we keep track of like how many
Is there a lot of high numbers, but the capture rate being lower? I was just curious where you're below the state average.
I guess like just you know what I mean?
I thought the questions that the exam survey were awesome.
You know, we have
I think or not a change in culture.
If we're below average, then.
Such a good one. I just would you start writing
For D, the question that I asked, how we're defining if we're already given the amount of choice
that's where I was
I agree with that. I think I just need to know like it's so it is.
I think she said 75 was like
Which
when we saw it.
Well, I mean, I guess it's 20% chance.
Yes, but my district is.
I know that was my
Well, and
That's
for
what
sure.
it's like everywhere they go. There's, I mean, they get the same answer.
So it's interesting to start.
I mean, they've been, and I wonder, when they go to school, the other ones are, I know, charity, and it'd be nice to see them. No, it wasn't today. That would be interesting. But yeah, very good. Very minimal.
Always
Good to see them advocating for them to get these grants.
Yeah.
I do think it's interesting that it's so maybe that's just that was my mind. So I think that's really good.
I tried to get it.
So I like the name and how they were.
Yeah, I do remember.
But
That was the one.
When it would be in school with the license. And I understand.
think about this, they got the name.
So it's 7% for the state is licensed teachers of color, which the disparity is 39%. And actually, we kind of still only one was.
Or like even beyond 42.
But
We were kind of a mix of them.
7% students of color. That's how many licensed teachers there are in the state. I don't know about everything. So on average, Minnesota is the 7 are teachers of color. Sorry, that was
True.
well, and generation, which I would have it was
Right.
A lot is about communication.
developing it.
I wasn't sure if that was the only
Factor or like
yeah.
I can just kind of see it like it's like a you know,
well, and there's like unique answers. I feel like that's one of the unique answers you're getting specific. But I wonder how much time is just this that you're right. It might not be that different. You might have. Because I always most generations their percentage is 70 and 80%.
There's not very many of it. They definitely some of the
yeah, this process but you know, I've
looking at for a while, I feel like we're like but now we see like with the
Feeling the revelation.
Yes.
Sunset on your face.
So we all sit back in our interior.
yeah, we're done.
I like those pictures. It's pouring rain.
We usually ready to come back.
You might actually look up.
Considering I haven't color change.
That I can cover. It's funny because you say Dale's so worried about the money. It's going to be one of the last projects to live. Maybe we should just give everybody a bucket of paintbrush and all. Seriously. We won't
All right, we'll come back together again.
Thank you, Dr. Heil.
You're welcome.
Director Mitchell has volunteered her group to present.
We had a few questions. One, Yvonne, on one of the last slides you were talking about mentorship being vital. We were just curious about, it with retention of our new teachers, teachers of color. I mean, what percentage are receiving mentors? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes.
Since it is so
And
important.
what are the mentorship programs? I know I missed the last work section, so I know you talked about that.
Yeah, although last work session was Grow Your Own, and we are coming back to highlight mentorship as well. So we do have a Teachers of Color mentorship program that's been going on for a little over 10 years. It is very successful. I may have to go and pull the data we do know when we're doing our data dives, we have a really high conversion rate of for those teachers of color that participate in the program throughout the entire probationary period, right? So not a 1 year and you're on a 3-year probationary track and you only do it halfway or for 1 year, but if they participate and they have that support throughout the entire process, we have an over 90% success rate of them achieving continuing contract. And so frankly, when you were just pulling that data, or when if we are aware of someone that may be, maybe having some struggles, that is, and they're a teacher of color, that is one of the questions we will ask. We'll say, is this person in the program? Because we do know that that is another aspect of support that really translates into high conversion rates to continuing contract.
So like how many how does that work though? Is that somebody's job, or is it in addition to being a teacher?
It's in addition to being a teacher. We do have we have multiple grants, and one of our grants supports a stipend for mentors. We do have 2 individuals that have who do the professional development as well. So they, that is additional responsibilities that they're compensated for. And then we have several teachers who receive mentorship stipends to participate and mentor, and continue to engage and develop probationary teachers. So they sign up as mentees as well. So essentially that's paid for through grants.
And is that similar? So I've also heard that you've talked about we also have the new teacher mentor program or something. Is that the same, or is that a different how does that work
There's
together?
A lot of programs,
oh,
right?
we do.
So we currently have a new teacher mentor program. However, and you may or may not recall that that grant is coming to an end and it was not renewed. Yep. So we did have 2 full-time new teacher mentors that were kind of broadly applicable, and Dr. Kine may add more. Those teachers are still in our district and they will continue to be in our district because they're continuing contract. However, the new teacher program is going away. The new teacher mentor program is going away. So we are continuing to look at other programs to support new teachers, and have a number of conversations with some of the new teachers to see if there's opportunity to redesign. Every year there are opportunities, new opportunities for grant-funded development and retention programs. So we continue to partner with Dr. Kine and her team on just evaluating what is possible and do a lot of grant writing.
I mean, it just seems to me as I listen, it's mentorship seems so vital, and it seems like such a strong kind of benefit to coming into a district as a new teacher, whether you're a teacher of color or not, but even I think when I look at the staff or teachers of color, it just seems like both of those, kind of like a both and. Yeah. It's such a, I would advocate for the investment to continue, because that's just, I think anybody going into any probably field, but especially teaching, we're a big district, a lot going on, and just to have that extra support, here, it's really vital. And so that's something that I know we just talked about, just the importance of that piece. And so I know that one kind of the grant ended, but.
So LNA still has an SDS, Staff Development Assessment Specialist, who is dedicated to new teachers. And
one person?
Yep. So
how many?
Well, that's one of the things that we are doing right now, sort of rebranding, is how do we layer support for new teachers coming into our system in their first 3 years of service in particular. So how do we use our instructional coaches and the rest of our Staff Development Assessment Specialists? But also, how do we make connections to sites, which is where they're going to have most of their questions, to make sure everybody is connected at a site to get an answer. So my department's actually Equity Transformation Challenge is actually rebranding our new teacher program. So it's not just one person, that it's everyone, and that this person, does the, if you think about it as like student pyramid, the tier 3, the really high level, I need one-on-one, ongoing daily check-ins and coaching and support. So that's some of the things that we're engaging in. We have a meeting coming up at the end of April with Learning Forward, which is a national organization on professional learning who's put a lot of energy into new teacher mentoring. So we're partnering with them as well.
And if I can just piggyback on one of the things, Kelsey, that you, and that Dr. Pine talked about layering support, there are a number of different types of resources, and so, and I agree with you. I mean, if we can have more grants, right, to ensure that we have, we're able to increase the mentors, that would be fantastic. But in addition to, SBAS, like Dr. Pine mentioned, there are instructional coaches at the central, like the system level, and then also instructional coaches at buildings, and they're not evaluative. They're there for development purposes. They're not used. They're there to give them, help them develop and get feedback, and they're not those. That development is not. It doesn't show up in the review. The different sites also have instructional leadership teams as well, and other different types of support and resources. So the mentorship is part of the fabric. And again, it would be great if we were able to obtain a new grant to review it.
But I do wonder, to your point, there's choices and trade-offs. If this has a really strong ROI, should we rebalance what that support looks like to prioritize mentorship? Just a question.
Yeah. Well, we see a correlation with what Yvonne shared about teachers of color who participate in the mentorship experience through. We see over a 90% retention rate. I don't know that we have that data for our new teacher.
It's invitational, and I don't have to contact the new teacher mentor team, whereas Teachers of Color Mentor Program is much more one-on-one. So rather than the 3 people who are serving 200 teachers or the 1 person, it's, hey, if you need this, reach out to this person. Whereas Teachers of Color, it's, hey, we're meeting at this time, and there's a stipend involved, which meeting with the new teacher mentors, there's none of that.
It's a good time for us to study.
Yes.
Can you confirm that we're supposed to talk about this more in August?
Oh, yeah, we are. In August, the teacher mentor program.
So looks like we do have a session dedicated to talk about mentorship. So hopefully this discussion can help inform that presentation. But we have 8 minutes left for this discussion. So I don't know if you all have
Just another question. Direction C, talking about the awareness converted to trust. I know that's a big one, and I know how communication and trust, well, in any relationship, right, are the most important. But the parameter or the measurement, trusting to do what's right on the community survey. Are there any other? I don't even know who I'm asking this question to. Right? Are there any other ways that we're measuring that other than the trusting to do what's right?
That's probably the best. I mean, trust can be so many things to so many people, right? So I do kind of like how you saw, like what people are liking about our school district, right? I think that's helpful to kind of dig into that a little bit, but otherwise it's just kind of people's reaction to that question about do they trust us to do what is right? So overall, so we can definitely, connecting with parents more and digging into that a little bit. Focus groups are a good way to do that. We can definitely do a little bit more of that to find that out. So
I think that'd be helpful. That's good, but it's just that's really general. So yeah, thanks.
Okay. Wait, I have one question, I guess. How are we thinking? Because after this, people love the schools and they're better than private schools and all that. Thinking about that capture rate of 67%.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem to make sense now, right?
There's opportunity there is kind of what it shows, right? There's student age children living in our community that are not coming to our schools, and there's a fair chunk right out there. So it's definitely an opportunity. So it's kind of showing that our enrollment really should be, if we were capturing, decades ago, right, when there weren't as many options, people kind of just took it as you were going to go to your assigned homeschool, right? There wasn't as much choice, whereas now it's there's lots, and it's more of a discussion, obviously, in the community as well. So Just in talking with many other school districts, you know, here and across the nation, like it really needs to be above 70% to be healthy. So we're definitely in that intervening area. But it could be, I mean, it's not apples to apples looking at other school districts, but we are like maybe other like first ring suburbs would be experiencing something different. So it's something that we're always looking into, and you can kind of tell in the community survey that Peter showed too, we really were trying to dig into like were schools like a determining factor? Like what was that? Because that list of things is a lot of the things that we hear from people on like why they're choosing a school, like how important are those things. So we're really trying to understand kind of like our like the person that we're almost like selling to. Like that's kind of what schools have become, is we need to like pitch it, we need to sell it more than just kind of like we're just accepting.
And I think I asked before, what is our percentage of religious schools that we have? Because we're not getting those. What is the percentage?
Well, so I was thinking about this. We compete. So I think we talked about this when we did the enrollment presentation in December. Kids from our district or from our area attend 160 schools outside of us. And it's like 81 private and 79 other public. So that's our competition. That number used to be like 50, and now it's 160. So there's lots and lots and lots of options. We see charter schools pop up all the time, and also, or retreat or close. I think the same thing tends to, as the economy is generally strong or at least holding solid right now, you tend to see more private enrollment. And who knows, if gas prices drive and you may see some of that retract the next year. So there's so many factors that are a little bit out of our control, but I would say, I know Minneapolis is a district that just has a ton of competition because of everything encircling them and so many charter schools within it that it's comparable. We have that unique blend of a ton of charters and a ton of private on top.
We talked about that question as well, and when we look at kind of funding and our funding being limited, this seems like a really great place. If we increase our capture rate, that will generate dollars. So if, as you look to next year and the strategies, I think we should really think what specific strategies to increase that capture rate. We're talking, some of it's branding, because the charter schools have no better performance, but they use words of excellence, or so is there something we can do within our schools, especially where the capture rate is being hit, that where we can brand some of the programs inside of our schools, or talk about it and market the heck out about what the parents said on this recent survey and what parents at our schools say. So I think going forward, this should be a key strategy for funding as well.
Like even like the video that we saw, like I mean that is like so inviting, and it's like I don't think people would just know, like that that's like insight, even for me, like
Yeah, we've done a lot. I mean, there's so many things that behind the scenes too that marketing wise we've been focusing on. Just to name a couple, like we've done some secret shoppers over the last couple of years to kind of really understand. Sharing, we've done some professional development with our front office staff on after learning about that, right, customer service, and the kind of like I've been saying really that importance of pitching instead of and just kind of assuming that you're kind of taking care of someone and really doing it in a really good way. We've gone ourselves to some base English shoppers at other schools as well to kind of really see, and there is a difference on what you experience if you're going to go to a local charter school and check it out compared to us. So that's what we're trying to change. Doing small things like that. So
I think a big part of it's perception versus reality.
That is very true. I agree.
I have seen the ads on Facebook or on
yes,
social media.
Lots of ads.
So, yeah.
Maybe a point or two more. We want to talk about this, the employees.
Yeah, we really think that, employee survey, we were curious because these are really great questions to ask, but our participation by staff is low. So we've talked from time to time about should we have an external company administer our surveys because of that perceived notion that is not anonymous. And we heard that at one of our last work sessions, that staff doesn't believe that it's really anonymous. So I would hate to have such great questions and great focus, but only have 30% participation in the surveys, which I think is what we're at on the staff survey. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this is something that we should have future discussion about because most corporate organizations use a third party and have 70-80% participation, or maybe even research. Like it's not a directive right now, but research and understand like are other districts utilizing a third party? What does that cost? Do they see better participation or not? I think it's time to think about that because we're getting so good at the work, and the feedback from staff is just so critical, and even like with the work that we're doing in culture. So how can that all pair together? The last thing we wanted to acknowledge, like we're finally getting our head around this. So like understanding like the highest priority, the focus priority, and the metrics that are tied to that. So like this doesn't feel so hard or confusing now. So we're there. I think.
Thanks for being patient.
All right.
I guess, so on the topic of the employee survey, is there anything that you all are needing from us to move forward with a third party? Is that something that you can look into and get back into us?
We can look into it. Before we start our next one, the one thing that we forgot to tell Alex was you didn't have to stay. Like seriously, pack up and go. It's okay, sweetheart.
But
no,
you're also,
seriously, get up.
You're welcome. You're also welcome to stay.
Yeah. He's like, I got children at home.
I think that's why he's staying. I was going to try to snip out. That's so easy.
Okay. I'm trying to help you. Just
Thanks.
it's okay.
I do want to just give a correction on the numbers. So if we total up licensed staff and ESPs, it's about 2,500. If we total all staff, it's a little over 3,000.
Okay.
So
Full-time staff? Full-time
yeah,
staff?
like benefit eligible.
Yeah,
all
okay.
benefit eligible,
Thank you.
because some of them are like ESPs.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Alice. All right, so we're going to go right in to our time. We're 2 minutes late. Class sizes with boundary changes, and John, if you want to introduce BJ as well, please.
Yep,
Thank
I'll jump
you.
in. Thank you, Dr. Heil, Vice Chair Brooks, Chair Prince, and board members. This evening, we're going to be presenting information on the district's class sizes for the current year, along with a historical comparison of previous year's class sizes. And we will also take a look at some of the effects of boundary changes, or at least proposed effects that we know at this time. All the data for the information we're going to discuss this evening was provided by Brightworks, which is formerly the Metro EXU ECSU group. They rebranded, and so one of the studies, the 21-22 study, was still under the old name, but the other two are under Brightworks. Their study that they do is a class size study for metro area schools, where we're providing information. BJ and his team provide that information, and then they send us back the report. And typically, we've been doing them every other year. So we're going to combine 3 studies to show you this evening. As you're looking at the information and the data, it's broken up a little bit differently depending on main area. So in elementary, it's broken down by specific grade. And then as you get into secondary, there are 2 areas. There's junior secondary, which is grades 6 through 8, senior secondary at grades 9 through 12. In both of those areas, it's broken down by class groupings, so art, business and marketing, family and consumer ed, health, so on. So you'll see that some of that information as we get through it here. And now I will turn it over to BJ Hermiter, the coordinator of pre-K-12 operations. Did I get that right?
You got it right. I
All right.
always get it right. Thank
And
you.
BJ will walk you through the information here. Just give me a nod whenever you want.
You got it. Thanks, everybody. What we're looking at here, On this slide is displaying average class sizes across the metro region as reported in the 25-26 Brightworks class study, as John mentioned. And you can see where the averages across the metro lie right in the mid-20s. They also, as part of the report, data collection, collect on minimum and maximum class sizes. I personally can't explain minimum class sizes but they do exist. And you see the maximums there as well. Those large maximums in junior and senior secondary typically are FIAS and music classes and are pretty consistent across the region as well as the rest of them. Okay, across the region, you can see, actually you can't see, but we'll tell you, the 23-24 represents the region-wide low point for average class sizes. We had a dip in class sizes across the region that year, coming out the post-pandemic. What we're seeing this year is a return to baseline, and it's not necessarily growth. Elementary averages follow, as you can see, about a valley pattern down and up. That's very common, where you see dips as you move through the grade span at elementary. Secondary and special ed, you'll see show a peak in 23-24. And that kind of peak reflects temporary factors like enrollment shifts that happen across the region. Minimum class sizes, so that small class size of 1 and those high class sizes. Minimum class sizes are rising and the maximums are falling, so those are tightening up across the region. And you'll see this throughout the presentation. Osseo remains well aligned with the regional norms in terms of class sizes. So here are displayed Osseo class size averages by the grade span for the 25-26 school year. And you'll see here that, again, we're right in the mid-20s. The junior and senior are a little bit higher than the region. Elementary is pretty much right in line. Here we're looking at elementary class size averages by grade, and you have the class size targets along the right side. I think in our last work session talking about enrollment in class sizes, there were some questions about how the targets come into play as a distribution factor for how we allocate staffing. And now you're seeing how the averages turn out as when students actually show up in classes and school operations are underway. As we know, averages do not alone reflect the full student experience. This is just a snapshot in time. Again, averages are pretty well aligned with the region. And in my history of compiling this data, I started compiling class size data for this school district in the 2012-2013 school year. Osseo has always remained right in the middle third of class size as we compare across the region, and that remains consistent today. This is minimum maximum. They look the same. So this is what Osseo minimum and maximums look like. I'm going to display this for elementary grade span, but not for the secondary because I don't think it's helpful. But here you'll see our minimum class sizes are in the teens, and some of our maximum sizes sitting just above target. And I need to remind folks that this is a snapshot of in time. We collect this data based on October 1 data. A lot of the enrollment data we look at in the school district is based on November 1 data, so a lot has changed since October 1. These are displaying minimum and maximums as of that time, so most of, if not all, have been addressed through either enrollment shifts, additional support and staffing, and if we were to collect this data now, we would not see the same, typically the same numbers.
Real quick question. So before we were talking about region-wide class sizes, you mentioned that the max is maybe like a PE or a music, right? That's not the max here.
We're not going to see that for elementary. The elementary data only collects for the grade levels, so K through 5, and then they do ask for some specific type of classes that we don't offer at the elementary. they'll ask for special ed, which we do include. But there's some other type of classes that we don't offer here. So you'll see that fighting music at the secondary level.
It's not unusual that large, that 155. That's choir. It's typically what that class is.
So BJ, just real quick, so if there's a center-based classroom, are those numbers in these grade levels?
In these, they are not.
Okay.
Elementary trends as we compare to the district, based on the current class size patterns, our kindergarten shows the most notable difference from regional averages. It doesn't necessarily indicate a problem, but it may warrant closer review if lowering class sizes is a strategic priority for the board. So you can see the OSSEO average for kindergarten is 21.61 compared to the region of just under 20.1. So it's about a student and a half higher than the region. That's the largest variance we have. But our average is still under the 22. Grades 1 to 5 are very closely aligned with the region. Class peaks remain within typical regional patterns. Our highest maximums are in grade 4 and grade 5, with our class sizes sitting right at the targets of 32 and 33. Again, the implication would be that kindergarten would be the primary area to monitor if exploring class size reduction is a priority.
I just, I'd like to say, I do think that is something that we should focus on, because my son was in his kindergarten class, I think was at 27, and, that's the time where our kids, learn to love school. And when you're in a class, it's a lot, for 5 and 6-year-olds, that's a lot for a teacher to handle. And my son did not have a great experience because there was so much going on in the classroom, and I think it just set the trajectory. And I do think that kindergarten is so fundamental. So that's where you learn to love your teacher and have friends, and when a teacher's feeling stressed and it's hard to manage, it does impact a student's learning and a parent's ability to build relationships with the school. So I would like to just advocate that we do look at that.
Okay. We'll take a closer look at kindergarten in the next slide. So as we compare over time, you can see where our current average was 1.616 as it has as we compare it to prior years. As we rank with the region, OSSEO does rank 26 out of 30th for kindergarten, region low being 16.27 and region high being 23.75. Again, the variance is small. Kindergarten class sizes can vary widely, as you can see. And this spread shows that districts operate across a range of class sizes while remaining within a pretty common regional practice for kindergarten. Here's where we take a look at middle school class sizes. And class sizes at the middle school by subject remain below the district target of 33 and shows consistent and stable staffing patterns across both core and elective courses. All subject areas below, again, are below the middle school class size target. And you can see the range there from 23.75 at pretty low in facts to 29.3 in music.
And I think this is also one, sorry, I know it's a trend that you're going to get to, but like Kelsey's brought up, I think math is such an important core subject that's something to worry about a little bit.
Something that you're not seeing in these numbers, as we look at class size targets, which distribute the amount of staff that we have to our students, there's also a scheduling implication that comes in here. So a lot of what you're seeing in terms of class sizes comes down to the local level in terms of how they schedule their students. And so where you may see a high math number at 28.4 as an average, what you're not seeing are intervention classes, push-in opportunities, a lot of opportunities for students that aren't impacting this number. And now those are all going to occur differently at our different middle schools. And you'll see the same thing in high school. So you're not seeing those other pieces that come into play. And these are some local decisions, maybe to run the core math subjects at a higher class size and provide some intervention supports around that. I don't know specifically for all of these numbers, but those are things that you don't see when you're just looking at the snapshot of a class size average, is all the supports that come around that. And all the other decision makings and scheduling that have an impact on what is showing up on a class roster.
And that would be an interesting thing to study at some point, like our core classes and how it's done locally. Because I think we've talked about doing things district-wide versus at our sites, site-specific.
And like, would you even have, like, if you have the smaller math classes, like, would you need all the interventions because you have, you know, a teacher, like, being able to really focus on, yeah, so I agree. I think it would be something.
Just even studying it,
Yeah,
I don't think
studying
I have a decision.
It is a wondering I've had is if we reduce class sizes, would that improve outcomes, and would it need as many of the other support or interventions? Just a curiosity here, and I don't know enough about comparing different systems or approaches, or but I am curious.
Thank you for sticking with that. As you can see here, our core academic areas cluster in the upper 20s, with language arts, math, science, and social studies, as well as FIAD averages between in the low 28s. And these averages reflect typical secondary scheduling patterns, while again remaining below the target. Elective courses show smaller averages, such as in art, facts, health, music, tech ed, and computer science. That suggests greater flexibility in the enrollment of the buildings or additional sections being offered at the school level. Special education averages are substantially lower, as you see, just under 8. That's reflecting instructional models designed to meet the individualized student needs rather than target-based class size for special education classrooms. A target functions as a ceiling, not as an expectation. So the data indicates that current averages are comfortably within the target range, and at the middle school level, we are not seeing any comparable pressure points. Next slide. I just talked through that slide.
Do you want the high school one?
We can go to the high school. Thank you. The senior high class sizes across all subject areas again remain below the district target of 33, with consistent patterns across core, elective, and specialized programming when we compare them to the middle school class sizes. And again, no immediate pressure points identified when compared to them. Overall, the data suggests that our master schedules tend to support smaller and elective and exploratory classes at the high schools and middle schools, while core and academic courses carry higher student enrollment. This reflects instructional priorities and program design choices rather than a single class size issue.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I'm so sorry. Which that implication is kind of concerning if we're still trying to get our kids to read and do math at grade level. And I'm curious, I'd be curious to hear more about that when we talk about the broader subject of it, like how that looks at specific schools. I mean, our job is to make sure kids leave being able to read at grade level and do math. And I know there's so many more wonderful things we're offering, but are we making sure we're doing the core things excellently?
But at the same time, like, we need to ensure that our kids have the opportunity to show their brilliance in other ways. It's not just math and reading. Yes, I think we over-test on certain things to say this is a measure of capability. So I would say, like, it's something to understand, but I would say it doesn't alarm me to say that we are seeking to prioritize offering more electives, which ultimately then result in smaller sizes, because I think that gives students more opportunities to show their capability, which then generates confidence to do better in other subjects as well. So I don't think it's an either
or. Or you can be completely frustrated in a core class and really struggle, and then give up and decelerate in your academic learning, which that's been an experience we've had in our family, and it's it is really challenging to come across that with larger class sizes where you can't get that individualized attention. So I totally hear you. I think it's awesome. We have so many great things our schools say. I'm not saying eliminate. I'm saying, are we paying attention to this trend?
I think it's something our school board needs to understand more, because I don't think we've ever gotten into these conversations. I think we have a lot of assumptions without a lot of information. So I think it's something we should keep talking about.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Sorry.
No, not at all. So the core academic courses here, ELA and math, are showing higher class sizes compared to the metro average. Signaling higher loads in the core academics. Elective and experiential courses consistently run smaller with smaller class sizes than the region. Science and social studies really closely mirror metro norms. And special education averages are modestly higher than the region, but aligning with certain program delivery models. Overall scheduling patterns suggest intentional prioritization of smaller electives alongside larger core academic subjects. And again, that has to do with master scheduling rather than allocation.
Can you talk a little bit more about the special education and the larger? So I know, again, I'm so sorry for missing the last work session, but so we just made a strategic investment in special education, knowing that the numbers were peaked. So will that investment alleviate? Because I've not been a special education teacher, but I would imagine like even one student, I mean, is, you know, if it's larger than, you know, kind of the average or the region. I mean, I think it seems like that would make a difference in a class. So I'm just curious, will that alleviate the class size for special education, that investment?
So,
or is that not even?
The investment is trying to protect the range that we currently
Okay.
hold, and we are in the middle of the pack.
Yep.
So we don't have the lowest, and we don't have the largest, but that investment was to protect the range that we have.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
So for high schools, high school class sizes suggest that these schedules are reflecting strong enrollment in CTE and experiential programs, while core academic classes remain closely aligned with regional norms as certain elective areas run slightly higher. Most core academic subjects align closely with regional averages, and several elective areas run modestly smaller than the region. Seeing that career and technical education and experiential programs are showing higher enrollment. And overall, high school scheduling reflects strong student participation in experiential learning alongside balanced core activities. Overall themes here, as you can see, one, overall District 279 class sizes closely aligned with regional patterns at the system level. With early learning kindergarten class sizes differ more from regional norms in other elementary grades. For middle school, it's the core academics, the ELA and math show modest differences from regional benchmarks, but those class sizes are higher. For elective and exploratory courses, we're seeing the class sizes trend modestly below regional benchmarks. In high school and CTE work experience courses are showing substantially higher demand than our regional peers.
One question I think we had asked when you came in previously and presented was about, yes, we have our targets. What is, not necessarily best practice, but what is, if this is a pain point for everybody and it's coming up in surveys that class sizes are a huge issue or they're a concern, what does that look like? How do we quantify what a smaller class size would be to people? Like kind of how he was asking the question of, this is where class sizes are, is that good enough? But then how are our staff experiencing it? And is that, maybe that's something for our survey, how that's going? I don't know. how to even get to that question, but curious if the real world experience matches the target as a best practice. Does that make sense? Like, is this really a good practice how we're doing it, or do we need to reevaluate our class sizes?
Or Hattie's work, can you speak to Hattie's work? Hattie's work shows, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the number one effect size is collective teacher efficacy, and so it's the extent to which teachers are able to sit down on a consistent basis and look at student data and look at student work and be able to plan instruction around that data. And in teams that do that really well, we see the most significant improved outcomes. So
Not necessarily tied to class size.
class size is not as significant as teachers having protected planning time to review student work.
So even that perceived, I think it's the perceived notion of the class feels out of control, or like it feels like chaos a little bit for safety reasons or things like that. I think that's the most feedback I've heard is around that. Curious, and so if that's not the day-to-day impact, then that's
We did ask in 2023 when we did the referendum survey, we did ask some specifics about class size. Now that's 3 years old, but we did ask it kind of as Peter was explaining, like, this is our class size. What do you think about that? We threw in some of the dollars piece to it. Like, if we were to add one student per class, right? Like, knowing the financial impact, would that make a difference?
So Hattie's work, John Hattie's research indicates that reducing class sizes has a small positive effect on student achievement. While smaller classes can help, they only improve learning outcomes significantly if teachers change their pedagogical approach rather than teaching the same way as in a larger class. But we can share some of that information.
Yeah, and I'm just curious for teacher experience too, what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because that's an important piece of it.
Yeah, I'd like to better understand that, and I guess I'm really stuck on the special ed because I understand that we made the investment to kind of keep the status quo, but I think my question even at that board meeting was, is it enough? And I still ask that question. Like, I'm really concerned about where we're at with special education, and I still have that question. I just feel like if we're gonna make an investment, we should make it to ensure that we do what we can to make special education whole. And I feel like, it's really hard because I know at the legislature, they're asking to cut. And I know we're in a hard position, but also we are fortunate to be in a position where we do have a fund balance. And we can, I think that's what Chair Simon's trying to do is like figure out like where as a board are we strategically trying to invest and get those processes aligned, so we're not having these conversations like where we have to go like do a special kind of request, but we're kind of thinking through that. So it's more of a comment and something to just, I think, consider moving forward, because when you talk about a moderately higher average in special education, it is concerning, and I do think that that's something that we should look at.
Okay, for my last slide here, I just have some talking points that again highlight the local activities. District 279 remains right in line with regional class size norms overall. We are neither systematically large or small. Kindergarten is our most significant elementary variance and a predictable place where families feel class size more acutely. In middle school, our core subjects run larger, which may impact instruction and support needs. Something we need to research. Elective areas at both middle school and high school run smaller than region averages, suggesting possible scheduling inefficiencies. Our high school CTE and work-based learning programs show strong demand and are exceeding regional norms. And ranges in some secondary subjects, such as math, music, and PE, suggest uneven section loading, which reflects current master schedule commitments. Any questions?
All right, thank you. So we'll take a kind of a quick look at the impacts on boundary changes. And what we did is we broke it into the two phases. So Phase 1 corresponds with the temporary closing of Crestview Elementary. Again, as a reminder, students who are returning were given the opportunity to pick from 3 neighborhood schools, Edinbrook, Zanewood, and Fair Oaks. And as you can see on the slide, that was overwhelmingly about 100 students chose Edinbrook and 15 each at the other 2. Boundary changes went into effect September of 25 for Edinbrook, Woodland, and Zanewood, which picked up pieces of the former Crestview area. And those alignments were intentional to make sure that students in those areas don't move twice when we get to this next year's boundary adjustment. So for reference, we did put in here the 2 new maps for starting with fiscal 27 forward. So you can see Aspen Ridge on the list now, and the adjustments. So here's the elementary, followed by the middle schools. As we move to phase 2, the expected impact of boundary changes are kind of highlighted on this slide. We're showing buildings with changes of more than 100 students. So the largest changes in elementary, obviously Aspen Ridge coming online is projected at 570 students. Fernbrook is projected to lose 342 students. Fair Oaks would gain 157. Rice Lake would lose 131, and as principal here mentioned, they would lose 103 students out of this building. Middle school, largest change is Northview Middle, bringing up their capacity by 286 and creating capacity space at Osseo Senior of 182 for projected growth in the future. Again, as note, there is a moratorium on in-district transfers that runs through the 27-28 school year. And so as we get into spring of 28, that's when we can start taking applications again for the following year. But by then we will have good data on the results of these boundary changes. The other area I would talk about is pressure points. The boundary change process is fairly unique, and projecting enrollment based on that is certainly not an easy task. I've been projecting enrollment for 15 years, and it's hands down the hardest enrollment projection I've ever had to do. I pride myself on being pretty good at getting that number within 1%, and have done that in every year I've done it. I don't know if I can do that this year.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
In a district transfer, you say spring of 28, not 27?
It's for the 27-28 school years where it starts back up.
Okay.
Sorry, did
You're
I
being
get my
financial.
numbers wrong?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait,
It's really
27 people can.
Yes.
Yes. So it's 26-27, it's still in a moratorium.
Yep.
For 27-28, it's open again.
Yeah.
And then we will, as an enrollment committee, we're evaluating that process to see how we want to handle that going forward.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, if I could add, it's going to be an important date, Kelsey, because we've been telling people no for a year and a half, right? Whether that's doing an in-district transfer or we've made the boundary changes. Yes, we appreciate your advocating for your kid and you're making a great case why your kid should stay and not have to do the boundary change. We've not made any exceptions to any of that. So I think when we do get to that point, January of 2027, I believe it is, we're gonna, I don't know how to guess it yet. Are we gonna have a flood of people asking to go back to their previous school, right? Or how are we gonna manage that? So I think that's gonna be important. That might be something to add. But to John's point, we're acutely aware of it on the enrollment team that's watching it. But we want to get everyone settled. We want them to be at their school 1 or 2 months before they're asking to transfer back. We don't want a huge influx of. We did all this work to get boundary changes. We don't want everyone switching again. Sure. Right? So it's going to be a tricky balance. We'll see how it goes. So we hope they get. We know they're going to get welcomed to their new school. Right? We hope they become a part of that community and it's not an issue. Right? But we'll see.
So with the pressure points, in the middle of the boundary change process as we were doing it is when the city of Brooklyn Park came out with their announcement that they were going to want to focus on developing the area near the Target campus for growth. And at the time, the estimated number of new housing units they announced was 10,000. If you think about that area and if you're familiar with it, in order to put 10,000 housing units in there, there's only one way to do it, and that is high-rise, high-density apartments. And I'm talking not a 4 or 5 or 6 story building, I'm talking a 15 or 20 story building. That's the only way it would fit in that area. Because there's also a desire to increase the technology hub that is kind of commercially in that area. And so we don't know how to react to that yet. And that's a big wild card for us. So that's why I kind of list the pressure point in the schools.
We'll talk about that on Thursday.
Yeah, you can, bring it up. Have at it. Kelsey, you can take that. So the concern that I have knowing that starts with the 2 elementaries that are in that area, which is, we kind of made a little adjustment to try to balance between them, but it's Elm Creek and Edenbrook, and Parkbrook sits just below it. So those 3 are the ones that are already showing signs of being near capacity, so we're going to want to keep an eye on them. This
What
is
about
information
Woodland?
that we'll bring to ECMAC and make sure, and like they're already aware because they've seen the new projections.
What about Woodland?
Woodland's okay right now. They're far enough east that I think that has the potential to be a pressure relief point if we needed it to be. And one of the things that I don't think, and I'm not speaking for Kay, but I would tell you that I don't think the desire to go do a massive boundary change is really high on the list in the near future. But I think it would be prudent as a board to keep aware of minor tweaks that may be needed. If something like this comes on, we're starting to see, you don't have to change everything. We can say, you know what, I want to adjust these 2 schools. Cut a little from this to give capacity there. I give you the example of Rice Lake now has a little bit more capacity. So if they had to pick up some of Elm Creek's area, they could do that. Or if they had to take back some of where Parkbrook is, they could do that. So those pieces are built in for a minor adjustment versus a whole system run. The other area another area to mention is open enrollment. We have seen a very noticeable uptick in open enrollment applications and open enrollment requests for coming in, having tours of schools, pretty directly related to the financial circumstances of districts around us. As they have more issues, as we hear about schools closing, and we have 2 districts that boundary us that are in statutory operating debt. That's a big deal. They're going to be forced by the state to make reductions, which means, you saw in the community survey, people are going to look down the list and go, what's important to me? And then look around and go, where do I want to go that matches that need? So we're starting to feel that pressure, and again, it kind of goes to the enrollment center and being able to be cautious about managing that, because open enrollment, once we give you the pass to say you're in for the rest of your high school career if you want. We can't take it away from you. So we have to be very diligent about doing that and not overwhelming our own system. So it's just an area to keep a close eye on. And we'll obviously continue to monitor the results of both boundary changes and our different enrollment opportunities as we get a little bit farther down the line. So I had the easy part, but any other questions you might have, we'd be happy to entertain.
So just going back to our previous conversation about class sizes, but I think ultimately the question for us is focused on achievement and what are the best courses of actions, including class sizes, to improve achievement. So I don't want to overemphasize our focus on class sizes because we hear about it. I think it needs to be in the larger conversation on maybe things that we're not as close to all of you, and like understanding we're doing this, we're learning that, we know that this is the best investment we can make. So I think we need to continue these conversations so that we can be informed on the levers that are best driving outcomes for our students, and to be able to make strategic decisions around that. So I don't want us to get hyper-focused on one of those levers. If you already have information, you already have things you've been working on, and now we're trying to push you in another direction. So I just want to balance out some of that focus today, because I think it's about achievement. So I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, other board members.
No, and I also think that will help us relay that to the community. Like when we do, if there's more to it, kind of how we can kind of talk about it, because like I think the last time when we talked about it, was like, it's hard to say like, you know, it's like, well, if we do this, it's going to increase millions of dollars. And people are like, what are you talking about? How is that possible? And like, even for us to kind of explain that, better have our heads around that a little bit more.
Yeah, I do think it's achievements, right? And I also think it's that safe and welcoming, that priority that people have on that survey, the top 3, is people want to know there's room for their kid. And they want there to be that attention, that there is safety in the classroom. So I think it's like yes, it's academic, but it's also that experience in our classrooms too.
I think between our family surveys, I know that's just coming out again, our staff surveys, I feel like we have the right approaches to keep measuring. And it's also compelling information that our parents are saying we are hitting those marks. Even though we kind of have class sizes that can make us feel uncomfortable, and that if we have $5 million to negligibly impact class size or to do something that's going to have a bigger impact, I think we just need to have more conversations so that we're coming together and understanding the strategies and choices.
For sure. I mean, I'm so proud of, like, even tonight's work session, it was to hear those survey results, especially during, I mean, he did those during ice time. I mean, to even have that is pretty incredible. So I'm really proud of being part of the system.
All right, Tana's gonna bring the pressure to bring it home. All right, it's 26 after.
Can we just go back to my lab? I'm just kidding.
Four more minutes. Just real quick, one of the things that has been brought up from the last 2 meetings, as well as chair, vice chair meeting, we're going to come into August and we're going to talk about this. We talk about everything we do the next day at cabinet, by the way. We're starting to look at the future budget planning, return on investment, communication on anything that may be happening. So you mentioned it as going off a cliff or things like that, or how do we share that? So we're going to start working on that, and that's going to be in our August presentation. Do you want to add on this?
So as we look at the projected deficits, I think it has to be a key priority for us to understand our choices and potentially look to slow those versus what they're projected out to be today.
Back to you. This work session is adjourned at 8:27 p.m.